Let's get something straight. The name Baphomet didn't just drop out of nowhere. It shows up during the Crusades, and it's not some deep mystical code invented by secret societies, at least not at first. Crusaders, in the middle of brutal bloody conflicts, wrote home that their Muslim enemies were praying to something called Baphomet. They weren't referring to a goat-headed demon. They were hearing Muhammad, their twisted version of Muhammad, butchered through language barriers, fear, and raw ignorance. That's it, miscommunication on the battlefield. It was cultural distortion, baked into hate and paranoia. Now fast forward a couple centuries and things get messy, really messy. The Knights Templar, one of the most powerful military and financial organizations in Europe, suddenly find themselves the target of a takedown ordered by King Philip IV of France. The king is drowning in debt. The Templars, they're sitting on mountains of wealth, influence, and secrets. Philip wants them out of the way, permanently. He needs a smoking gun. So during one of the most grotesque mirror campaigns in history, he accuses them of worshipping an idol called Baphomet. Torture follows, false confessions follow, and the myth of Baphomet, being some demon of heresy, is locked into the public mind, the word itself. Baphomet is a Frankenstein's monster. Chopped up syllables, twisted meanings designed to sound foreign, threatening, and evil. Nobody actually produced a Baphomet statue during the Templar trials. No one found ancient texts devoted to it. There was zero hard evidence. Just men breaking under torture, saying whatever their captives needed to hear to make the nightmare stop. It was a setup to kill off a threat to royal power and scoop up their treasures, nothing more. But here's where it really starts to burn through history, because Baphomet as a name survived. It became this ghost floating from rumor to rumor, from trial records to esoteric fantasies. Later occultists, mystics, and conspiracy theorists picked it up like a discarded weapon they didn't invent. Baphomet, they adopted it, retrofitted it into something mystical, something cosmic. But at its core, in the raw historical record, Baphomet begins as an ugly political tool, not as some ancient secret god hiding in the shadows. And it's insane how lazy most mainstream narratives are when they talk about this. People still imagine Baphomet as if I'd emerged fully formed from ancient grimoires or dark cults. It didn't. It was born out of fear, propaganda, and brutal tactics that had nothing to do with real mysticism. It was just another weapon in the arsenal of the powerful, a word used to crush a group that had outlived its usefulness. You need to forget every cartoonish image you've ever seen of Baphomet, because the one that stuck, the one burned into pop culture's brain, was designed by one man, Eliphas Levi. We're talking mid-9th century Paris. Levi wasn't some black-robed devil worshiper in a basement. He was an intellectual, a former seminarian who ripped through religious dogma and rebuilt his own vision of the occult from the ground up. When Levi drew Baphomet, the goat-headed winged figure sitting cross-legged with a torch between its horns, he wasn't inventing a monster. He was codifying a philosophy. That famous image, it's a blueprint of duality. Male and female, human and beast, light and dark, heaven and earth. Every inch of that figure screens balance: the breasts, the phallic caduceus at the midsection, the androgyny. It's not some confused mess. It's deliberate. It's structured. It's the visual punch to the face against every black and white worldview that says good and evil are simple and separate. In Levi's mind, the true nature of existence wasn't about purity. It was about merging the contradictions into one. Look at the arms, solve and coagula tattooed across them. Dissolve and coagulate. It's alchemy 101. Break it all down, smash it to atoms, and then rebuild it stronger. Levi wasn't pointing to magic spells and witchcraft fairy tales. He was showing the mechanical process of transformation inside you, inside nature, inside the entire cosmos. Even the positioning of the hands, one pointing up, one down, isn't some artsy flair. It's ripped straight from Hermetic principles. As above, so below. What's happening in the heavens mirrors what's happening inside you. No separation, no hierarchy. You are the microcosm. You are the battleground where light and darkness crash and merge, and let's get this absolutely straight. Levi didn't draw Baphomet to glorify evil. That's lazy thinking. He drew it to challenge the fake binaries that religion and society shoved down people's throats. He weaponized symbolism against hypocrisy. Baphomet isn't Satan. It's not some demon trying to drag you to hell. It's a mirror, it's a call out to the broken system that teaches people to fear their own nature. The torch between Baphomet's horns isn't decoration either. It's enlightenment. It's the fire of consciousness ripping through ignorance. It says, wake up, think, break the chains of dualistic dogma. Recognize that what you call evil might just be the part of yourself you've been trained to fear, to hate, to exile. Levi understood that real power wasn't found kneeling before some holy authority. It was found standing inside the chaos of yourself and forging something better out of it. That's what Baphomet is. Not a god, not a devil. A symbol, a mental crowbar smashing the illusions that keep people small, scared, and obedient. People still freak out when they see Levi's Baphomet. They call it satanic. Without even scratching the surface, they see horns, wings, and breasts and instantly lose their minds, proving exactly the point Levi was making. Humanity fears what it doesn't understand, and it loves to slap a monster label on anything that threatens its fragile version of reality. You want to understand Baphomet, then you better start understanding alchemy and Hermeticism, because that's where the real conversation is happening. Not in Sunday school, not in some trashy horror movie. Alchemy isn't about turning lead into gold. It's about transforming yourself. And Baphomet is the visual manual for how to do it. Look at it, solve it, coagulaze. Not a cute tattoo. It's the battle cry of transformation. First, break it down. Solve tier. Apart the lies you were fed. Since birth, smash the illusions about good evil purity. Sin, rip everything apart until there's nothing left but raw unfiltered chaos. That's where you start, only after you dissolve. Can you coagulate, rebuild something real? Something that's yours. Baphomet sits at the center of the storm, not running from it. Hands up, hands down, light and dark, above and below. It's the axis point between heaven and hell. Not choosing sides, but understanding that both sides are inside you. If you think you're all light, you're lying to yourself. If you think you're all darkness, you're just as blind. Reality is built on tension, on contradiction, on smashing opposites together until they create something new. The goat's head, it's not evil. It's raw, nature, the instincts, the primal parts of yourself you're trained to deny the torch. Your goddamn brain lighting up when you finally stop living like a puppet. The wings ascent evolution, rising above ignorance without pretending to be something pure and sanitized. And don't think for a second that Baphomet is in anything goes free pass for chaos, no. Alchemy demands discipline. You can't coagulate if you're just wallowing in your own destruction. The goat, the wings, the torch. They're the tools, not the destination. If you don't know how to use them, you get stuck in the same pathetic loops humanity's been trapped in for centuries. You want the real secret? Here it is. Baphomet is the symbolic engine of personal revolution, not worship, not fear, not mindless chaos, conscious evolution. It's the map that says, burn the fake parts of yourself to the ground and build something better from the ashes. Hermeticism. The real kind, not the watered-down Instagram quotes, backs this up as above. So below isn't just cosmic poetry, it's a fact of existence. The universe doesn't operate in cleanlines and neat labels. It's wild, violent, creative, destructive, all at the same time. And so are you. If you can't handle that, you'll never even get close to touching real knowledge, let alone real power. Baphomet throws that brutal truth in your face with no apologies. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your sacred cows. It's the cosmic middle finger to every system that told you to sit down, shut up, and obey. It's not about being comfortable. It's about being awake. If you think Baphomet is some stand-alone weird symbol cooked up by 19th or century occultists, you're missing the real story. The DNA of Baphomet is tangled up with one of the oldest, most radical spiritual movements in human history, Gnosticism, and if you don't understand why Baphomet hit so hard. The Gnostics didn't buy the official version of reality. They looked at the so-called God of the Bible and didn't see a perfect, benevolent creator. They saw a tyrant, a fraud, a lesser being, pretending to be the ultimate authority. They called it the Demi-Age, a pathetic knockoff god obsessed with control hierarchy and blind obedience, and they said flat out, the real divine source is beyond all this garbage. It's pure, unfiltered mind. It's the spark hidden inside you that the Demi-Age desperately wants you to forget. Now think about Baphomet in that context, a being that merges opposite, challenges authority, and points the way toward hidden knowledge. That's Gnosticism. 1. Baphomet isn't bowing to the fake god of rules and punishments. Baphomet is the symbol of the spark refusing to be extinguished. It's the knowledge, the gnosis, that your entire reality is a cage built by something smaller than you, weaker than you, and terrified of you waking up. That's why Baphomet is so dangerous to mainstream thinking. It doesn't just reject religious control, it exposes it. It flips the table and says, this whole system you worship, it's a lie built by a scared little god who needs you, blind, obedient, and weak. The goat head, the wings, the torch, every part of the image screams defiance against false authority. It's a call to war against spiritual slavery. You think that's extreme? Look at the Gnostic myths themselves. Sophia, the embodiment of divine wisdom, accidentally gives birth to the Demi-Age, an ignorant being who doesn't even know there's a higher reality. The Demi-Age creates the physical world as a prison, a broken reflection of something infinitely better. That's the Gnostic origin story. Not a fall from grace because of human sin, but a system rigged from the start to trap consciousness in matter. In ignorance, Baphomet stands at the crossroads between these two realities. One hand points up to the higher true source. The other hand points down to the fake kingdom of the Demiurge. It's not telling you where to go, it's telling you no. Both understand, both transcend, both. If you're only chasing the light, you're playing the same game. If you're only wallowing in darkness, same thing. Duality is the cagenosis, is the way out. And here's the brutal truth. Most people will never get it, they don't want to. It's easier to cling to the cage, call it home, and attack anyone who tries to rip the blindfold off. That's why Baphomet keeps getting demonized. That's why the symbol scares people. It's not because it's evil, it's because it forces you to face the fact that you're a prisoner and that the key's been in your hand the whole damn time. Gnosticism and Baphomet are a direct threat to every institution built on control, religious, political, cultural, because once you realize that divinity isn't locked away in some throne in the sky, but burning inside your own consciousness, you can't be ruled the same way. You can't be manipulated with fear. You can't be herded into wars, into debt, into fake moralities designed to keep you weak. You become the system's worst nightmare, a thinking, self-aware human being. That's what Baphomet represents at its core, the refusal to play by the broken rules of a broken god. It's not rebellion for rebellion's sake, it's the cold, brutal realization that the entire game was rigged from the start, and that the only real victory is waking up, tearing off the chains, and becoming something the cage was never designed to contain. When you talk about modern occultism, you can't ignore Baphomet. Take a Crowley. People love to brand him as the wickedest man in the world because they're too lazy to actually read what he wrote. Crowley didn't see Baphomet as a demon or a joke. He saw it as a symbol of total transformation. Crowley adopted the name Baphomet for himself after he was initiated into high degrees of the Ordo Temple Orientis. Why? Because he understood what most people still don't. Baphomet wasn't about worshiping darkness. It was about mastering both darkness and light, ripping the chains off your mind and your body at the same time. Modern occultism doesn't deal in fairy tales, it deals in reality. Brutal, uncomfortable souls. Scorching reality, and Baphomet is the perfect embodiment of that. Every tradition that matters. Every tradition that's about awakening and not about obeying. Digs into the same brutal truth. You are not here to follow. You are here to break yourself down and rebuild something bigger, stronger, and smarter than the puppet they trained you to be. That's why Baphomet shows up everywhere. Yes, in ritual magic and secret orders, and the symbolism behind the scenes of real power movements, because Baphomet isn't Anadol. You kneel to. It's a blueprint. It's the savage reminder that evolution is violent, real change. Spiritual change isn't a meditation retreat. And a candle. It's a war inside your own damn soul. People outside these traditions freak out because they think anything with horns is automatically evil. They never stop to ask why the things they've been taught to fear are the very symbols of liberation. It's almost like, and stay with me here. It was deliberate. Keep people scared of their own instincts, their own power, their own inner fire, and you control them forever. Let them find Baphomet. Let them understand that light and darkness live inside them and belong together. You lose them, you lose control. Look at the Satanic Temple today. You think it's just a joke. You think the Baphomet statues they put up are random. No, it's a tactical move. It's a symbol that tears open the lie. That religion has a monopoly on morality, that the system has a monopoly on what's good. It's a public middle finger to the idea that authority comes from above and you just have to bow and accept it. Baphomet is the master key. Modern occultism uses to blast through dead religions, dead governments, dead ideologies. It refuses to accept. Because I said so, as a valid answer, it demands you. Earn your knowledge, earn your freedom. No one gives it to you, no one hands you enlightenment. You rip it out of the chaos with your bare hands or you die. Asleep. That's why Baphomet isn't for the weak. That's why real occultists respect it, even if they never speak it out loud, because it's a blood pact with yourself. It says you are both the devil and the God you seek. Stop crawling. Stand up. Crowley knew it. The Golden Dawn knew it. The serious ones today still know it. And deep down, the system knows it too. That's why they push the cartoon version of Baphomet so hard. The scary goat demon meant to terrify soccer moms and Sunday school teachers, because the real Baphomet, that one would burn their whole pathetic house of cards to the ground. Let's stop pretending the Templars were some Sunday school knights riding around saving pilgrims. That's the cartoon version, the real Knights Templar. They were dangerous, they were rich, they were powerful. And when power like that grows outside the control of kings and popes, guess what happens? You get crushed hard. By the early 1300s. The Templars weren't just a military force anymore. They were a banking empire. They were kingmakers. They had their own ships, their own fortresses, their own lines of communication across Europe and the Middle East. They owed loyalty to no king, no local lord, only to the Pope, and even that loyalty was getting thin. King Philip IV of France saw the writing on the wall. He was drowning in debt. Guess who he owed it to? The Templars. He couldn't control them. He couldn't outspend them. So he decided to destroy them, not with an army, but with something way deadlier: public fear. On Friday the 13th, 1307, Philip unleashed hell. The Templars were arrested en masse, tortured, interrogated, forced into false confessions. And here's the centerpiece accusation that made it all stick. The Templars were charged with worshiping Baphomet. Let's get real. There was no concrete evidence, no altars, no idols, no secret rituals caught on tape, just broken men confessing under agony to whatever their captives needed to hear. It wasn't about finding the truth. It was about building a narrative, fast, brutal, and effective. Why Baphomet? Because it sounded foreign, alien, heretical, scary enough to turn the public against the Templars. Overnight, the word Baphomet wasn't new. It had already floated around Europe during the Crusades, a mangled version of Muhammad, demonized by Christian propaganda. Philip's men weaponized it. They spun it into a satanic conspiracy. Before satanic, Conspiracies were even a thing, and it worked. It worked like magic. People didn't question it. They didn't ask for proof. They ate it up because nothing gets a crowd foaming at the mouth faster than the idea of secret heresies, secret idols, secret blasphemies. Right under their noses, the Templars didn't stand a chance. Their Grandmaster Jacer was burned alive after retracting his tortured confession and calling out the lies on the scaffold. The order was disbanded, their assets seized, their reputation shattered. And what about Baphomet? It didn't disappear. It stayed lurking in the background, morphing over centuries into catch-all symbol for anything the establishment wanted to paint as evil, rebellious, or dangerous. But there's another layer, a deeper, darker layer that gets ignored. What if the Templars did have secret knowledge? What if they were hiding something powerful enough to threaten church and crown alike? Mystical traditions from the Middle East, ancient Gnostic wisdom, forbidden understandings of the universe that didn't fit the neat little cage Christianity had built. Because let's be honest, you don't burn an entire elite order to the ground just because you're scared of a rumor. You burn them because they know something you can't afford to let leak into the hands of the masses. Baphomet, in this deeper context, wasn't just a smear campaign. It was a symbol of forbidden knowledge. The Templars, through their long exposure to Islamic mysticism, Judaic secrets, and hidden Christian teachings, may have stumbled onto truths that made the medieval church piss itself in terror. Duality balanced the divine spark inside humanity, the real sacred truths that Gnostics whispered about and tyrants tried to bury after the Templars were crushed. Baphomet didn't just vanish, it became a whisper, a rumor, a ghost floating through underground texts, secret societies, hidden teachings. But it wasn't until the 19th century that the symbol clawed its way back into the spotlight, and when it did, it wasn't. Playing nice, Eliphas Levi pulled Baphomet out of the shadows and slammed it onto the page with brutal clarity. His version wasn't a satanic monster. It was a map of the human condition, a fusion of opposites, a call to enlightenment through destruction. And rebirth. Levi's Baphomet wasn't evil. It was complete, it was real. And for a while, serious occultists understood that. But then came the 20th century, the age of mass media, the age of cheap symbolism, and Baphomet got hijacked. Anton Lay and the Church of Satan took the basic fear people already had and poured gasoline on it. They rolled out the sigil of Baphomet, the goat head, inside the inverted pentagram, and stamped it onto everything: t-shirts, patches, album covers. It was smart marketing, brutal marketing, and it worked. But make no mistake, it wasn't the original meaning. It was a weaponized, commercialized distortion instead of being a symbol of inner alchemy and enlightenment. Through balance, Baphomet became shorthand for rebellion without substance, shock value, middle fingers without the work, and the public ate it up because it gave them an easy box to shove all their fears into. See a goat, panic. See a pentagram, scream, problem solved. Nothing required mainstream culture, desperate to simplify everything, grabbed the fake version and ran with it. Horror movies, heavy metal albums, conspiracy theories. They all painted Baphomet as the mascot of ultimate evil. And why? Because it's easier to sell fear than to sell complexity. It's easier to keep people scared of symbols than to have them ask real questions about the systems controlling their lives. Meanwhile, real occultists watched the circus with disgust. They knew that the true Baphomet had nothing to do with cheap rebellion or edgelord aesthetics. The true Baphomet was a gauntlet thrown at your feet: master yourself or stay a slave. There was no middle ground today when you see a Baphomet statue unveiled by groups like the Satanic Temple. You're seeing the evolution hit its latest phase. It's not about devil worship, it's about ripping the mask off of religious freedom, hypocrisy. It's a strategic move. It forces the conversation. It demands the question: if your faith is so strong, why does a statue scare you? Baphomet has always been about more than horns and hooves. It's a litmus test. It shows exactly who understands the game and who's still too scared to even look at the board. When Baphomet shows up in culture today, in art, in protest, in philosophy, it's not just a random aesthetic choice, it's a surgical strike against mental laziness, a demand to either evolve or stay asleep. But most people, they still prefer the lie. They still point and scream, thinking they're winning some moral war by doing it. They don't even realize they're reenacting the same stupidity that burned the Templars, the same blind terror that tortured truth-seekers for centuries. The system doesn't have to do anything. The herd will police itself today. Baphomet isn't just a symbol sitting in dusty old books or hidden inside underground lodges. It's on the front lines, it's in courtrooms, it's in public squares, it's in memes, debates, protests. And once again, just like hundreds of years ago, people are losing their damn minds over it without understanding. A thing groups like the Satanic Temple use statues of Baphomet as weapons, not to promote evil, but to blow up the hypocrisy behind the idea of religious privilege. You want Christian monuments in government spaces. Fine, here's Baphomet too. Equal rights. Let's see how committed you really are and what happens. Panic, outrage, desperate moves to shut it down. Because deep down, it was never about religion. It was about power. About controlling the narrative, about pretending there's only one acceptable version of morality. Baphomet, just by existing, wrecks that illusion. It drags the unspoken biases into the open. It forces people to confront the truth. They don't want to admit that real freedom is messy, dangerous, and uncomfortable, that you can't claim to love liberty and then freak out when you see a symbol you don't like. And the attacks against Baphomet today, they're just modern versions of the same fear-driven idiocy that killed the Templars, that demonized Gnostics, that burned witches. It's the same playbook: fear what you don't understand, attack what challenges your comfort zone, build an enemy out of anything that dares to say there's more going on here than your little box allows. Mainstream culture still wants Baphomet to be the villain, the easy scapegoat, the monster that justifies their ignorance. That's why even now, decades after Baphomet was dragged back into public view, people still react to it with fear instead of curiosity. They still choose the easy story over the hard reality. Because if you really understood Baphomet, if you really grasped the brutal message encoded in that symbol, you'd realize the war was never about statues, never about goats or pentagrams. It was about your mind, your soul, your ability to see through. Eliphas Baphomet stands as a reminder that freedom doesn't come from obedience. It comes from transformation, from evolution, from smashing the false walls inside yourself and demanding something bigger, something stronger, something true. And the system, political, religious, cultural, needs you to stay chained to fear. It thrives on it. It counts on you, flinching at horns, wings, and fire, instead of asking real questions. Because once you start asking, once you start seeing, the whole game starts to collapse. And they know it. That's why the battle over symbols will never really be about the symbols themselves. It's about keeping you blind, keeping you docile, making damn sure you never realize that the real battlefield has always been inside your own head. If you made it this far, it means you're not afraid to look deeper. You're not afraid to question, to think, to dig through themes and find the raw, uncomfortable truth buried underneath. And that, more than anything, is the spirit that Baphomet really represents: the courage to face the unknown without blinking. In a world that tries to force easy answers down your throat, you chose to stand in the fire and demand better. And for that, seriously, thank you for giving your time, your mind, your attention to this journey. Thank you for refusing to settle for surface-level narratives. Thank you for being part of the few who still believe that truth isn't given, it's earned. If you found value in this exploration, if it made you think harder, dig deeper, see differently, that's the biggest win there is. Until next time, stay awake, stay strong, and never stop seeking. See you in the next video.